exposing these endpoints, but it's also manipulating this data. So let's break this up into two classes so that the controller can focus on just being the interface between the HTTP world and the Java world. And instead, let's move the responsibility of manipulating the data model into a separate file, and we'll call it a service. So services. So in services, we'll call it the widget service, right? So we'll create a Java class, and we'll call it widget service. So the service, right? The role of a service is to implement the data updates, right? Now the data updates for now will be just updating that array, right? So we're going to move all the work that we did in the controller. We're going to move it here. So for instance, this list over here, we're just going to rip it out from here, and instead just move it over to here. Okay, and these functions are pretty much going to have the same API, right? So we're going to have create, we're going to have find all, just these guys, right? The actual ones that we really care about. We're going to move over here, but I'm not going to import any of this, because all this, the posting, the request body, none of that lives here. That lives in the controller, right? I'm only going to keep the part where I actually update the content. I update everything. So all this request stuff, right? All that has to do with HTTP, the controller does that, right? I only keep what I manipulate into the data model, right? So I can add widgets, I can retrieve widgets, I can retrieve all the widgets, right? And then from the controller, right? I can instantiate the widget service. I can instantiate service new widget service, right? And then I can use the service for all these, right? I'm just what we'll do is that none of the actual manipulation of the data happens in the controller. I delegate that to the service. So create widget, I pass in new widget, right? So the controller again is not responsible for manipulating this. It delegates this to somebody who knows how to do this, right? Today the service is very simple, right? It's manipulating this array. Next week, right, when we introduce databases, right, we'll refactor this so that instead of using arrays, it'll go out to the database, right, and put this into a remote server database, MySQL, running somewhere. Make sense? So right now it's just arrays. Next week it'll be a couple of tables. All right, so let's finish up refactoring this. So find all widgets. It's just gonna, again, it's going to delegate this to the service. So the service is the one who can find a widget by ID and pass the widget ID, right? And refactor this and return the whatever the service dot find all widgets. That makes sense? All right, so let's restart the server and see if we broke something. Okay, so if we refresh, okay, this still works the way it used to work before, right? So we didn't break anything. We just are using a design pattern, right, where each type of object is responsible for its own little piece of the world. Okay, so together the controller and the service make up a web service, right? The controller side, the controller implements the web side of this, right? Whereas the service takes care of the service part of the web service. Makes sense? All right, awesome. So we split it up perfectly. Excellent.